successive governments that we have had since 2008, a topic that has been coming up on and off is the optimum number of gewogs for Bhutan. So, and more specifically, the discussion has been on reducing the number of gewogs in our country. So, what I have tried to say in this article is that when we talk about the optimum number of gewogs in our country, efficiency is a very valid argument, but I'm also saying please look beyond efficiency gains to also determinants and factors such as cultural, historical, social facets to gewog boundaries. In 2005, that the number of gewogs was increased from 199 to 205 ml at that time. It was calculated a few years ago that if we reduced the number of gewogs in our country by about 28%, we would have an annual saving of about 200 million nultrums similar. So that's a very valid argument. Now with improved telecommunication services, if all goes well and if all local government public services are fully integrated and offered online, we may soon be looking at a local government model which will not require a lot of physical interactions with GUPs and mangmis and topas. Other arguments are also that if you have fewer but larger gewogs, then the government can provide more financial resources, more human resources, and a positive effect of that would be attracting and retaining good people. 2 decades ago, when Chang Gewog, when there were discussions that Chang Gewog would be merged with Mewang Gewog, the argument was that with the expanding municipality boundary, does Chang, which was becoming smaller, does it deserve to exist as a separate Gewog? At that time, the very passionate argument from people in the Chang Gewog, expressed very vocally by the elected representatives in the National Assembly, was Chang has this sacred function to fulfill. Chang is part of the Wang Soche Ge. Wang Soche Ge, the concept itself would disintegrate if Chang was then merged with Gewog. We would have Wang Soche Din, maybe. So from that angle, a lot of arguments were presented, and then the 80th session of the National Assembly decided that Chang deserves to remain a Gewog. So these were the kind of arguments. These are not efficiency arguments, but equally important. So also there are equity considerations. When we talk about mergers, generally the assumption is that smaller gewogs would be merged with their larger neighbors, and therefore there is a risk that during local government elections, smaller communities, which then become minority communities absorbed in a larger gewog, may not stand a chance to get elected. And some social media commentators were saying, if my gewog is to be merged with another one, please at least give us a new name similar. So the feeling I got was that if we were to suffer the ignominy of being absorbed into another gewog, the suffering would be lessened if a new name was given. So this sense of community identity attached to a gewog boundary and its name Dwala. So then my conclusion is that efficiency very important, especially now. But if we are so excessively pragmatic that we lose sight of these other considerations, may not be good Sanoila in the long term. We may lose sight of things that make Bhutan and Bhutanese special.
According to Prime Minister Dr. Loti Tsering, that he mentions that there's a big disconnect between the gewogs and the zongdas. My intention was to bridge this divide of the LG with the central government in a more professional manner, not necessarily through legal documents and so forth. The then Tourism Council of Bhutan, and now of course the Department of Tourism, they launched a survey of domestic and outbound tourist survey for the country, and what really struck me was, why aren't Bhutanese traveling amongst our own region? Why are we looking into India, Thailand, and so forth and so on? I thought if this sector of tourism, as a nation, we do not tap into right now, in the long run, we will always expect for the international tourists to make this economic sector of our country progress. So self-reliance is another question. And I recall an article by Honorable Lempo Om then, which was titled "Who is a Bhutanese?" Okay. Now, I think after all these publications and educating and informing all of us, I think we've reached a point where we as Bhutanese have to ask ourselves, who is Bhutan? Because why I say this is because we've given ourselves a $200 tag, and I think when we do that, we also realize that we are coming out of a society where the governance was always decentralized. And then why is the local government still not part of the mainstream economic development? As we know that in terms of democracy, we apply the majority theory. And if you actually look into the number of administrative offices across Bhutan, it is the highest. The local government number of offices that they hold is the highest. Now, whether they reach out to the people or people are utilizing them is another question. If you see in Article 22, Section 23 of our Constitution of Bhutan, which reiterates that local governments shall ensure that local interests are taken into account in the national sphere of governance by providing a forum for public considerations on issues affecting the local territory. It's a very ironic statement, I think, because at the end of the day, when you develop the local area, you are also developing Bhutan as a whole. So my argument is, why not streamline this path more effectively? And what I basically emphasize is two examples: is the Royal Bhutan Flower Exhibition, which takes place annually. Has it been successful? I don't think so. In many cases, the Trans Bhutan Trail, which has involved a lot of zongkhaks, like 28 gewogs, local governments to be exact, two municipalities, and many more like the Bhutan Canada Foundation, the Tourism Council of Bhutan, now Department of Tourism, and these have all combined forces to oversee this restoration project. So it has always been there, and I felt, when we see our portfolios of our local government nowadays, they have so much more skills and potential, and we are not tapping it. We are just limiting them to local only mindset. So I think they should be provided to contribute to national development in a more holistic way, provide everybody avenues.
The electoral law requires that only one candidate from one geo can contest for the GUP elections. And then if there are multiple candidates, then what is the procedure? Then this is where the Dhamngoi zomdue comes in, where people decide who should now go to represent them in the real election that they call it. Earlier, the participation of the people in this kind of a zomdue was consensus based, and then mostly agreed by the family and then participated by the head of the family. But now it is no more the case. Anyone who is eligible participates there to select the candidate who would potentially represent them in the GUP elections or the local government elections. And now that everyone of the age is entitled to participate, everyone has their voice, then how has this changed the traditional the style of how people participated? Who did they support it? Earlier support was largely based on individuals, maybe who have had support from the elites or from a religious organization, or someone who have had a very good record in the villages. But now everyone has their voices, and they would like to have the candidates of their choice. Even within the family, the choices are different, because the consensus is not made even in the family. So outside the family, it's very difficult to meet. This is when the old traditional fabric of how we participated in the zomdues has been broken now. And then now people have also a lot of frictions, particularly with the mandate of the local government, particularly the mandate of the GUP. What should be the mandate of the GUP? Because whenever the elections comes in, then GUPs or any participants would come out with their thoughts of how they are going to bring certain developments in their village or in that particular gewog. Then the next round, the National Council members would come in with similar pledges of what they are going to do it. Then after that, then members from different political parties for national assemblies would come with similar similar promises, let's say, that this is what they have in their plan and this is what they are going to do. And then oftentimes the plans made by the GUBs, the contestants, and then oftentimes about the political parties, and sometimes even with the National Council, things are not different. Everyone is promising the same. Then how do people actually understand what is the mandate of these three different institutions? This is when people are confused, and this is where the first conflict starts. Then sometimes people do not even participate, knowing that there's clearly some sort of overlap with the mandate of these three different institutions.